allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you,
You
everyone.
didn't tell me that Larry was on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm sitting there thinking, am I going crazy? Because I asked Steve, I said, is Larry coming? He's like, no.
No, he's not coming. He's with us, though.
And I heard it, I thought, oh, I'm hearing
That
things.
threw me off, that little delay.
It has that typical delay, though, when you're a second or so behind. Okay. All right, Mrs. Smith may come tonight. We haven't heard from her, but she may come up here, so we'll go from there. Okay, Mr. Wilkerson has already noted he's with us by phone tonight. Let's approve the minutes of the June 25th, 2019 regular meeting, please. Motion? Mr. Wilkerson made the motion.
Second.
Mr. Curry seconded that. Everybody in favor of that? All yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Ray, anybody sign in to speak to the board tonight on the pink sheet?
No, sir.
Okay, good job. Everybody signed in tonight. Presentations, reports. It's Ray again. The finance director's going to talk to us about the finance update. Mr. Ellis.
Okay, since last time I talked, I think I went over, according to some of the people in this room, they thought that I went about 30 minutes over or so. I don't know how long I spoke. I'm gonna be about 10 times shorter than I normally am.
Brandon, you speak up more close.
Mr. Wilkerson's
Let me lift that for you.
No, I'm starting to feel like my legs locked down. Thanks, Bill, I got it.
Once you get hurt, didn't it?
In front of you, you'll have
You hearing now, Larry?
just a monthly update.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
And it's just running through the numbers. I corrected some of the stuff that we found a while back, just to make the comparison from year to year look good. You'll see I got a balance sheet in there for May. I ran another balance sheet for June. And if you remember last year, going into the end of the year, I had a problem with retirements. Retirements were all out of whack. Well, this year I got a few more tricks up my sleeve that I learned last year. So with a couple of entries, the retirements will be about just nil. They'll even out. So they'll be about $1,600. I'll have to figure out where that went or why it's there. So that won't be a problem. Balance sheet looks a lot better than it did last year at this time. So there shouldn't be that big of a problem. Still have to set up the balance sheet probably in the month of August. Right now I'm just going to be reconciling everything from accounts payable to accounts receivable and things like that. That'll take up most of July. Let's see, the revenue from the tax sources, what we get from the sheriff, you can see that on page, let's see, I think it's page 5 or 6.
Handwritten, page 5.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you can't even see, it's
On the
page
top
5.
left.
If you look at that, up through June 30th, so I always give you what month's closed, which is May, but I go back and I put in what we've got up through the date of my presentation. So we'll go up through the end of June 30th. And right now from the county, we've collected $6,645,000. That's down from the previous 4 years. Historically, we've collected between $79,000 and $121,000 in the month of July, which goes to June. Given that fact, we still are going to be way under budget on the regular levy and excess levy, you know, our main sources of money. Right now on the regular levy, we're down $136,000 below what we budgeted, and we're down $152,000 on the excess levy. So that puts us $308,000. Some of the other stuff that I budgeted off of the tax collection, stuff like delinquent sales and land sales and things like that, they were over budget, but they weren't over. We collected enough to be over budget, but we're not enough to make up that $308,000. So, given that, given the fact that we were collecting a little less than what we had the previous years from the state with the PSSP formula that they have, I think we're going to be okay financially. I think we're still going to be in the black, but that 300,000 and then plus what we didn't receive from the state because of loss of enrollment and things of that nature, it's going to be tough. But if you looked at, I think it was the last week was the board meeting, I was in DC and we did the budget supplements, and there was, I don't know, maybe 50 or 60 budget supplements. All that was just moving money around to the different accounts to make sure that when the auditor comes in here, he sees that everything's over budget. There was some stuff like on transportation and maintenance where I had to move a lot of money from our previous carryovers into that because those budgets we went over. But there were some things like our main Fund 11, like for teachers pay and things like that, we saved a lot of money, so it kind of equaled out. So it might look bad to move 300,000 into a certain program, but other programs were under budget by $1 million, so it's not that bad. When I look at cash is about what I expect. I've had to draw down some money recently just because of the way the state auditor changed the procedures to draw down money. Something I hadn't had to do in previous years. I did it in May instead of waiting until the summer when the year's over. Because we've got to have 2 reports now that have got to equal, and the only time they'll equal is right after you close a month. So I spend a day after I close May, spend a day or 2 and just drew down money. That money will be coming in, so that just accounts for all the federal program spending that we have. It really doesn't affect our county stuff. That's money that we've already spent. We really use county money to pay for those federal programs up until we draw that money down. So that'll help offset any cost that we had in Fund 11. But as far as, that's really it. I mean, you know, the taxes, I wanted to let you know that we're not collecting as much as what we budget.
Let me clarify something. You said the money you received in July from the sheriff's department. Now, is that counted in June?
That'll be
Although
counted
you're
in
actually
June.
receiving them in July?
Yeah, it'll be put in as an accounts receivable, and that'll all go to June.
Now, Ray, are you familiar with what the Supreme Court decision that just came down a few weeks ago about natural gas wells, I think, what
No.
our tax? I was talking to Mr. Midkiff about a minute ago. I was told yesterday that county boards were gonna be hit hard with, small county boards like Lincoln County. They do not know exactly yet what the damage is gonna be. But I talked to the assessor yesterday, and he called the tax department or emailed them, and they emailed him back and said that counties like Lincoln would be hit hard over that Supreme Court decision.
There was an article in Gazette
I
2 or 3
remember
days ago.
somebody saying, somebody was talking about that, one of the counties up north.
But I think that actually the tax department's trying to cipher out what it really means, because they don't even know what damage is gonna do yet.
That's just what we need is another cut.
I know.
Does anybody know when that would be effective? We don't know that yet.
I'm sure next year. I don't know.
Which court decision, probably.
I'd say it probably went in effect immediately. But I don't,
If it
I
did,
don't know how
then
much money we've been getting from that. But I don't
it's
think-
impossible for me to be able to tell.
Yeah.
We just get numbers from the assessor's office. And of course, you know, we budgeted the numbers that he gave us,
Yeah.
so.
It's probably something he doesn't know either.
Just
You know, he probably know how much we've been getting from.
Right.
Now, some of the counties up north really benefit from that.
Right, that's right.
I can't even think what county it is, they don't even get any.
I believe somebody mentioned Pendleton County or
Yeah.
something.
Doctors, Wetzel, that area.
Yeah.
They don't even get much state aid because they just don't
They
need
said
it,
it
they got
really
such a
gonna help
surplus.
the larger counties.
Yeah. I don't know, I'll be interested to see. The budget that
Well, I
we
didn't
just set
know,
up.
you know, in upstate, where they do anything more than tax department do or not.
Well, nothing's come down from Amy Willard at the Department of Ed about it, and they're pretty good about letting you know what's going to affect you,
Yeah.
but nothing's come down.
Do you all have a annual meeting rather than like ASBO
There'll be one in a couple of weeks, that the Department of Ed has.
for financial people? So maybe that, because they're also going to, I guess, address this local sheriff thing, explain that to us like that. The legislation legislation about how the local share somehow was going to change those new law that was passed.
They'll go over all that. They're still working out the changes to the formula. So I'll have to change the budget based off what the governor signed. It's affecting, with the extra raises for, what is it, math and then special ed.
Yeah.
Where they get an extra 3 years increment on their pay. They'll have to give us that money. And anything else that affects that
They don't have
formula,
to.
they'll go.
They can always say, you guys are gonna do this, but we're gonna let you pay for it.
Well, I've heard that before.
Yeah.
This time they're not gonna give us some money.
Yeah, I think they're gonna give us money this time.
But, this thing about the local share, something about it, from 85 to 90% or 90 to 85, which way it is, I forgot. I don't really totally understand it. But somehow that's gonna impact us, but supposedly to the good. But we'll see how that works out too. But much of it, they probably have to figure it out themselves.
That formula for state aid is quite large. I mean, it's just so complicated.
Well, supposedly this, the local share change would benefit counties. But we'll wait and
Well,
see.
it needs to benefit the smaller counties, is what I don't.
Well, it's like in 90 and 85%, those are the two numbers that cost about. Once again, we'll find out.
One other thing, the budget that we submitted, they had a couple of changes I had to make. I made those, and then they approved the budget, so I got that letter. So we're all good there. That was a pretty smooth process. Anything else I need to go over?
I don't think so. There was some good news in the fact that this bill that was signed into law gives counties some money for counselors, social workers. Based upon what I learned yesterday, it sounds like we're going to get enough money to at least pay for one position. And I'm thinking about a social worker at the high school,
Yeah.
because we don't get any money for that position. So this would pay for that,
Just firm.
But based upon what I heard yesterday,
Well, the House still got a vote on that, don't you?
no, the governor's already.
No, that wasn't in, that one and one other, the House still got a vote on.
I mean, provisions of it that haven't
Yeah,
been.
yeah,
I know that the Senate didn't gavel out the session. It's still,
yeah.
I know that, yeah, there's,
But I mean, the House will pass it, but.
But much of this doesn't really take effect for a year or two, does it?
I don't know about that.
we're under the impression that it goes into effect immediately. That's how we're,
Well, but I'm saying, that's why somebody's gonna have to decipher this, you all there.
They're working on it.
Well, I know
Yeah.
this charter school aspect, or part component of it, it's like 21 or 22 or something like that, I believe, when it's, they'd be up and doing that, the way I understood it. But we'll find out when it's good or bad.
our superintendents have not received any information, treasurers have not received any information.
Well,
They haven't done the final computation for state aid yet. Normally, they do that before we do the budget, about April or May, but they couldn't because they put the session in June.
that makes sense.
When we did the budget, I went ahead and changed the salary schedules, and then Trina and I entered it into the budget module, the exact raise that they gave them. I mean, to the dollar. We did $21.20 for professional and $11.50 for service personnel, and that's what they passed.
Right.
So we don't have to do any changes with that, but the math teachers and the special ed teachers that are certified, that are gonna get that extra 3-year increment, that's gonna be about between $1,800 and $2,100 that they're gonna get extra. And Trina's gotta work on that to get an addendum ready
If you
for
don't
that.
want to know this, the special ed teachers, I believe they have to teach 60% of their day in that.
That was math.
No, I mean, that's what I meant, the math, I'm sorry. I mean, do you know right off, would most of ours qualify for that?
We have several people on special ed on permit, and we don't know, like people on the alternative certification, we don't know if they're gonna call that certified, because when we had to transition to teach, they were working toward it, but they consider them fully certified. There's a lot of questions we have. We don't know for sure if those people will get it.
But I mean, assuming they did, or
Yeah.
those that are, most of them would teach at least 60% of their day in math.
Yes, that's the law, yeah, that's what it says, 60%.
Yeah, but I'm saying, in reality, ours would meet that, they're not teaching
Yeah,
something else.
most of ours are straight math.
Okay, I figured they were.
Now, I have a couple questions. One, this, I forget what the number was, $300-some thousand that we're projected to be short on tax collection, not projected, we are short on tax collections. Pretty much wipes out the surplus, a little bit of surplus we were carrying, doesn't it?
I can't remember what last year's was, but, when you took out OPEB, I think we were carrying over $499 one year and $459 in the last 2 years.
So, I mean, this 300,000 roughly that you're projecting we're gonna be short off budget, wipes
Well-
that out pretty much. I mean, there's a lot of difference in a $500,000 surplus and a $150,000 surplus.
That's true.
A lot of difference. I mean, $150,000, one adverse court ruling can wipe that out that quickly. So the
Yeah.
second question then would be, have you adjusted, or does the budget for next year that you propounded, does it take into account the reality that tax collections for next year are probably going to be worse than they were for this year? Or is it based off a higher number than we actually collected this year?
It went down, it was based off actually what we put when we put it to the voters to vote on the levy. We were still down from it about $80,000 is what I budgeted. So it keeps dropping every year, and every year we still can't make that budget. So tax collections just keep getting worse and worse and worse. So.
But that levy rate is set for 5 years.
It's set for 5 years, but if we get numbers from the courthouse that says, hey, we're not gonna
Right.
collect that, then that's how I take out the money from the levy. Now, does that necessarily mean we're not gonna have a carryover, or it's gonna wipe everything out? I don't think so, but it definitely has an adverse effect, because if your budgets stay the same, and you know, as what they are now, and our expenditures are the same, and we collect this, then, you know, that's $300,000 that we get extra, that's definitely gonna be part of the surplus. You know, anything
Well,
we'll
it
carry
complicates it even more. Some of it's excess levy, and some of it's regular.
Yeah.
levy, so.
You know, every time that we save money, you know, in Fund 11, whether it is, a lot of that goes into a big pool, and it's mixed with county money, it's got state money in it, and the better we manage our money, the better our carryover is gonna be. That's why when we get new employees, we always try to find a grant to pay for them, something that's state aid or something like that. And like I've said before I got here, they were really good at doing that, and we've kept doing that. Every time we're gonna hire people, we try to find money to pay them out of, just to save that county money. But yeah, if we would collect this, like in June, if we get $300,000 and we meet this, then chances are in July, if we collect it for June, then that's just gonna be an extra $300,000.
Your chances are that's not gonna happen.
Well, I went back 5 years looking, and we never collected more than 121, and lately it's been about 79 to 90.
So at what point last year and the year before did we look at numbers and say our carryover is X number of dollars? When will we have a number from you saying for 2018, 2019, our carryover was X compared to what it was in prior years? When do you do that comparison? After financial statements, or?
No, it's during the last part of those financial statements when you close out the year, because you gotta have everything reconciled. And when you have everything reconciled and the balance sheet's set up, that's when it'll probably be late August, that's when I
Okay.
think, early September.
Because I mean, the more time, and that's always been a focus of the board, is we can deal with bad news, but the more notice of it we have,
Yeah.
the better that the administration and the board can look at these issues and, with you, I mean, obviously you're integral to the process, come up with solutions to continue doing what we do with an ever decreasing budget. So more information earlier is always better.
Yeah.
And I guess my third question would be, as far as financial statements, how are we on having all the underlying data squared away so that when it comes time to do those, we're gonna be on time with everything we have to submit
I
this
think
year?
we'll be okay this year. Like I said, the balance sheet's in better shape right now than what it was last year. in the end of July or in August.
Mhm.
Just because we managed a few things a little bit different, just from, we figured out what some of the problems were, so we changed what we were doing. 2 months ago, retirement was perfect. So in 2 months, it's off several $1,000s, but I learned how to deal with that last year.
Okay.
So I think we'll be okay. It's a process getting a balance sheet set up. That's the hardest thing that I've had to do or work on. It seems like it should be fairly straightforward, but when you get into it, it's a very complicated procedure. But once you get that set up, you'll know your carryover. Then the financial statements actually are not a huge problem. Financial statements are, it's like a big puzzle. You just work on a piece every day, and in 30 days you have it done. But setting up that balance sheet's been tough. But when you have that set up, that's when you should know, or really close to what your carryover number is. So, but I think just given what we've done in the last couple of years since I've been here, the way that everybody's managed their budgets has always helped with that carryover. I think the year before we had 16,000, but the year before I got here, and then we had, I can't remember what that first year was. I know we had 459 one year, 499 maybe last year, and it totaled up like 1.3 million what we had in the 3 years I've done the financial statements. So, and like I said, I used some of that with some of the entries I did last week, but it'll all come out in the wash whenever some of the others, we managed the budgets maybe a little bit better, and we had $1 million surplus here, 200,000 surplus here, and some of the things that we were over budget on, it's not as big a deal as what it initially looks like. So I think we'll be okay.
We never know, like Robin says, what might come about or what discretionary things we have, what we would have need for it.
Well, one way to do that, and I've always tried to keep you up to date, is with watching those tax collections. We watch those, and there were some months, I can go back historically and look and say, well, March and April are big months, and maybe October, I can't remember, there's one other month seems rather large, and you can look at those months, and I think it was in April, we made up some ground. We were way behind. We were way behind. And then we collected about 120,000 more than what we had the previous year, and it helped out.
That's based on when there's taxes,
Yep.
their taxes are due, and then you have to wait for them. Okay. Anything else from you, Mr. Baker?
Nope.
Fred? No. Okay. All right, Mr. Wilkerson, do you have any questions of Mr. Ellis?
Not at this time, no.
All right, good. All right, thank you, Ray. Let's move on then to the, we don't have an administrative section. Okay, I don't think we're creature of habit here. Let's go to the finance section. Do you have a motion to look at these? So moved. Rowdy?
Second.
Second by Fred. Okay, Ray, just keep it talking.
3 in a row. Schedule of invoices totaling $160,609.73. That listing is attached. As always, if you've got a question, just let me know.
Yeah, we've already gotten those, so we'll have a chance to look at it. Now, is that all yes on those finance invoices?
Yeah.
Okay, oh, yes. All right, let's go to personnel then. Motion?
Second.
Fred makes a motion, Rowdy seconded that. Mr. Linville,
You should have a revised one there.
revised, please.
Revised. Okay. Item A, employment of short, long-term substitute professional personnel. B, employment of professional personnel pending issuance of first-class permit. Item C, transfer of professional personnel. D, transfer of professional personnel pending issuance of certification. E, employment of substitute service personnel. F, employment of service personnel. G, transfer of service personnel. H, employment of extracurricular personnel, as all of our coaches has been wanting to know when they're getting hired, and so we took care of all those. I, leave of absence, and J, retirements and resignations.
These retiree people, they haven't made their decision yet as to what option they're going to choose yet, have they? Or they
No.
that haven't made it?
I know what one's gonna do. One'll be Dan.
We haven't voted on him yet.
That's right.
One'll be Dan.
None of these are official.
I can just tell you about one.
None are
We
official.
did not have to vote yes to hire someone in substitute or to allow them to resign from their current position.
They said you just wasn't gonna show up. Okay. Anybody have any particular questions? I was just glancing here at the, do you know right off the top of your head, did we have more applicants for these coaching positions than usual or about the same based
Some
upon
of
the
some
salary?
of them we had, some in certain areas we had more, and some we don't get very many. We have to call the principal, and they have to beg somebody.
Even with the salary bump?
Yeah, no one's mentioned anything about the salary.
Oh. That incentive didn't work very well.
I mean, maybe they're talking about, but none of them's called and said, well, what does
Maybe
this?
they don't know it yet.
What does this
Maybe
pay
it's
at
not.
this time, what does this pay at that time?
But apparently, we still have vacancies then in some of those.
Yes, in a
Positions,
few
right.
areas, yes.
All right. Anybody have any other questions about the personnel items?
We're on the
Yes,
personnel
sir.
schedule. Assistant principal's position at Harts,
We had 7 applicants, 3 out of county, 4 in county. Met with Principal Blair, and we discussed it, and we're going to interview the 4 in county because we have some good candidates. We're going to interview on Monday, the 15th in the afternoon, and we hope we can have somebody for you to put on the agenda the 16th. Everything goes well. It's vacation, a lot of people's on vacation, and different things to try to get everyone's there.
John
And
had
interviews of how many?
4.
The 4 in county? Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you. And is there a timeline for Mr. Linville's position?
we're gonna post it tomorrow,
Okay.
and, I'm gonna be on vacation next week, so it's gonna be the week of the 15th before I can interview, for the position. So Sean, I think it's probably gonna be that July 30th board meeting,
Okay.
before I would have a recommendation from the board.
Thank you.
I have a question. Under retiree's resignation, Jerry Cummings, is he leaving the school system? or
No,
just
no.
giving up
A department head.
Okay.
He's done that for years, and someone else is interested, and he said,
Okay.
let somebody new run it a while. That's what it was.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? Okay. If nothing further, is that an all yes on the personnel items?
Yes.
grudgingly, yes.
All good. Okay, comments, concerns, board members? Mr. Midkiff?
I don't have anything other than I would request that we have an executive session, provide you an update on some personnel matters.
Okay, 6:30 p.m. Mr. Midkiff has requested an executive session on personnel matters. A motion to that effect?
Second.
Okay. Fred made the motion, Larry seconded that. All yes vote?
Yes.
Is that with council or with, is there somebody taking part?
Without counsel.
Okay.